Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight in today because the economic numbers for December 2025, they've just created, well, absolute chaos.
They really have. The official headlines are screaming about a Goldilocks economy, a huge 4.3% annualized GDP growth. It sounds amazing.
But then you dig into the source material, specifically this forensic report, the Potemkin Ledger.
And it tells a completely different story. They argue these numbers are basically a statistical illusion. They think it's masking a cloaked recession.
And that's the disconnect we need to unpack. How did the paper economy, the official one, get so far from the street economy that, we all actually live in?
Our sources point to three things all hitting at once. Shutdown mechanics, a huge structural divergence, and, frankly, institutional fear.
Okay, so let's start with mechanics, the government shutdown.
The 43-day shutdown from October 1st to November 12th, it completely paralyzed the statistical agencies, the BLS, the BEA. They had to stop observing data.
So they were flying blind.
Totally. They had to rely on imputation, which is just a fancy way of saying they estimated everything based on historical trends. It's a black hole for accuracy.
Wait, there was one error in there that was particularly bad, right? Something that threw off the inflation numbers for months.
Exactly. The case of the missing zero. The BLS couldn't collect any rent data for October. None.
And shelter costs are, what, a third of the CPI?
A huge chunk. So the model just defaulted. It put in a 0.0% monthly change for rent. That single zero artificially tanked the headline inflation number down to 2.74%.
So it's a fake number that's still in the system.
Oh, yeah. And analysts are saying it'll take at least 6 months to flush that fictional zero out.
And what's wild is that these, technical errors are happening in a new climate of fear. I'm talking about Schedule F being implemented.
Right. Stripping civil service protections. The report calls it auditor capture.
So if you're the statistician and your job is suddenly on the line, you might subconsciously lean toward the rosier number.
It raises a huge question about data integrity. You suddenly have a career incentive to, let's say, not dig too deep into anomalies that paint a negative picture.
Okay, so we have bad data collection and political pressure, but that's only half of it. There's this structural gap, the truth teller gap.
This is the core of the problem. The simple rule in economics is that GDP, which is spending, and GDI, gross domestic income, which is income, they should be identical.
But they're not even close.
Not at all. The reported GDI growth was just 2.4%. That creates a 1.9% gap between spending and income. That's one of the largest on record.
And what you have to remember is that GDI is historically the truth teller.
Almost always. GDP gets revised down later to match GDI's reality.
Which makes that 4.3% GDP number look like a sugar high. It's driven by that huge 5.1% surge in personal consumption.
But it's consumption fueled by debt and people draining their savings. It's not coming from real wage growth. You can spend money you don't really have, but that doesn't make the economy healthy.
And this illusion of health is masking a really, really scary problem on the national balance sheet.
This is where it gets interesting. We've officially violated what's known as Ferguson's Law.
Ferguson's Law? That sounds ominous. What does that mean in practical terms?
It means our interest on the national debt, which is now $1.22 trillion, is bigger than our entire defense budget at $892.6 billion.
So we're spending more servicing old obligations than investing in our future security.
Exactly. It's seen as a signal of structural decline, and the smart money sees it.
Right. Bond yields have plunged to 4.14%. The bond market is pricing in a recession, not a boom.
And look at gold. It just blew past $4,500 an ounce. That is classic capital flight. People are looking for an exit.
Which sets up this perfect Wile E. Coyote moment for the stock market.
That's what the ledger calls it. The S&P 500 is priced for that shiny 4.3% growth. If the real economy is actually the 2.4% GDI number.
Then there's a huge gap between perception and reality.
A huge gap. The report predicts a brutal 20 to 30% equity correction when that facade finally crumbles.
And the ultimate danger here is the policy trap this creates for the Fed. They see 4.3% growth, so they're misled into keeping interest rates high.
And by doing that, they're just crushing the real, weaker GDI economy even more. It's a feedback loop of destruction, and the real numbers probably won't come out until the benchmark revision in mid-2026.
So here's the final thought to leave you with. The Narrative Dissonance Index, which measures public mood against official scats, just hit 8.25. That's a level of deep public gloom even as the government celebrates.
Which really raises the question, how long can an economy survive when the public believes the government's math isn't a tool for governance, but a weapon for survival? Something to think about.